I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. The first item on the agenda is to go into closed meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Be it resolved the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of the following. Section 2.2-37115. Discussion concerning a prospective business or industry of or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry interested in locating or expanding its facility in the community. And that is number one is project 2013006, and number two is project 2013026. Then -3, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or the disposition of publicly held property, whereas the discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining power of the position or negotiation strategy of the public body. And number one is Motor Mile Park. Number two is Old Blacksburg Middle School property. Number three is Park and Ride. And we have a fourth item, which is
Allegheny
Springs
Green Box
Consolidated Site. And -1 is discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplinary, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. And number one is the Parks and Recreation Commission, Social Service Board, and Personnel. And do we need to bring the other ones up?
I'm sorry.
Did you have something we needed to bring up in closed meeting?
We have a vote and
We didn't vote on that.
We haven't voted yet. We haven't voted yet.
I think he was thinking about when Annette came in, she said there was some things that we needed to talk about.
Oh, but
But that was good. Did that need to be added to the closed?
no, it doesn't.
Okay, all right.
No, I don't mean talk about in closed meeting. I mean just talk about.
Oh,
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Lewis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And we're in closed meeting.
I think Judge Stewart had you.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. And the first item is to go out of closed meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Ms. Perkins?
Help me.
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed? Chair Lewis?
Aye.
We know what.
6 ayes.
And the next item is to certify our closed meeting, whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provision of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires that the certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in a closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And only such public business matters as identified in the motion conveying this closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Lewis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And the next item is our invocation. If we will please stand and take a moment of silence and consider what's before us today. And following that, Mr. Meadows will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item is a presentation, resolution of appreciation for Gerald W. Jerry Higgins, who has supported us through getting into the Water Authority, and we have a...
It's down there at the dais. If you
Okay,
guys
sorry.
will- Sorry.
If the board members will please come forward, and Mr. Higgins, if you'll please come forward. In an adjourned meeting of the Board of Supervisors of the County of Montgomery, Virginia, held on the 23rd day of September 2013, at 7:30 p.m. in the Board Chambers, Montgomery County Government Center, 65 Roanoke Street, Christiansburg, Virginia. We have a resolution of appreciation for Gerald W. Jerry Higgins, NRV Regional Water Authority. Whereas Jared, I'm sorry. Jared W. Jerry Higgins has served the citizens of Montgomery County since 1989 as the manager of the Christiansburg VDOT Water Authority, which provides drinking water to approximately 65,000 people in the Northern Valley. And whereas Jerry Higgins received national recognition in 2011 when he was awarded the Distinguished Public Service Award given by the American Water Works Association for his outstanding contributions as a volunteer and public service while receiving recognition as a professional in the industry. And whereas Jerry Higgins has served on the county's Economic Development Authority and the Montgomery County Regional Economic Development Commission, and whereas the Board of Supervisors recognizes that this is consistently thoughtful and thorough consideration while working diligently with the Montgomery County and the members of the Christiansburg DPI Authority, and to complete the joinder and establish the NRV Regional Water Authority, along with integrity and reliability, gratefully earn the respect and the trust of the body. And whereas, now therefore be resolved, the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, the Board of Supervisors hereby extends the unanimous vote in appreciation and gratitude to Jerry Higgins for his professional accomplishments and his outstanding public service and dedication, and congratulates him upon grand occasion of this retirement, which is, I'm having a hard time with it. With sincere best wishes for the continued health and happiness. Be it further resolved that the original of this resolution be presented to Jerry Higgins as a testimonial of his high esteem and appreciation, in which is regarded by the Board of Supervisors, and a copy of this is part of the minutes of the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors. Enjoy your dinner. I think you better make us a bottle. Is that okay?
It's been an honor and privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want to come up?
Mr. Chair, as the board's coming back to their seat too, I would like first to thank Jerry again for all his efforts and work as part of the joinder, because candidly, if it hadn't been for his dedication and persistence, I'm not sure if we'd have ever got through that process, and certainly appreciate on behalf of the county all you've done, Jerry. The other thing I wanted to take an opportunity to do is Jerry's successor is with us tonight as well, Caleb Taylor. Caleb was hired by the Water Authority Board several weeks ago. I believe most of you may have had a chance to meet him at the event that was held a couple of weeks ago, but Jerry, anything you want to say about Caleb? Or
I believe you're going to find out very quickly that Caleb is extremely capable, and he's probably going to do a better job than I did. I think you're going to find out extremely good relations with the Water Authority through Caleb in the future.
Thank you. Caleb,
Thank you very much.
glad to have
Thank
you on
you.
board.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Virginia Department of Transportation. Mr. Clark, please.
Good evening. A few updates here on what's been going on. Probably the most noteworthy, just got started this week. We're working on the, actually it's the county's doing most of the work, all of the work on this. This is a revenue sharing project for Old Sourwood Road. It's a, that's the dirt glue project. They moved in Monday, got mobilized, got the equipment in. I think most of the work they've done so far has been done today. I think it went pretty well. It's the connection to Huffville Road is a difficult one. It's very wide. Making a connection to the asphalt road is tough, but once they got that going, I think we'll make a lot more progress tomorrow and should finish it up this week. And then, you know, we'll continue to evaluate and see how it goes. And VDOT had its materials section out there that will help us in the evaluation, and we'll decide whether it's something that the county wants to pursue on maybe some other dirt roads. But right now it's in an experimental phase. I don't know that it's been done on a VDOT maintained road anywhere in the state. It's been done on parking lots and maybe some towns and other types of private type stuff. But as far as I know, this is the first time on a VDOT road it's been done, so it'll be interesting to see. Sourwood gets about 150 to 180 vehicles a day. Get some heavy vehicles. I think they do some logging out there, so it'll get a good test. But I'll keep you updated on that. It should finish this week, so next time I come to here, we'll let you know how it went. And Mr. POLITIS was out there, and we had a lot of people out there. Actually, quite a number out there. They're held up, so I think it's going to be okay. Another revenue sharing project we just finished up was Yellow Sulphur Road. We did about a half a mile, maybe a little bit more of Yellow Sulphur Road. It looks very good. We'll continue. I think there's another revenue sharing project, and then it's the main road in your 6-year plan that towards the end of the 6 years we'll get several $100,000 a year in roads that have to be done that are over 200 vehicles a day. So that's your main road for that. Most of the other stuff has been sort of ordinary maintenance things. We've been doing some brush cutting in McCoy and Ellett. We had a smaller paving schedule this year than last. We're pretty much done with that. We've got Camp Carey's Brook Road left to do there. Doing about 2 miles of that, 2.5 miles of that. But we overlaid some on Merrimack. Did a little section of North Fork Road. Did the subdivision off of Thomas Lane behind the old Price's Fork Elementary School. I think it's at Montgomery Farms.
Montgomery Farms.
Yeah, did that subdivision. That turned out well. We are in the process of replacing the pipe on Wake Forest. Had a little bit of difficulty in that we're doing that by trying to bore through, jack a pipe through instead of open cut the road because the pipe is so deep and there's no real detour. there's no other way out of that end. So it's been quite a job to build a wide enough section to do it in 2 sections. So we just had a little difficulty getting the pipe pushed through because apparently there was just over the years a lot of things went into the fill to build that road. Apparently a lot of large rock. So I think we've got it solved, but that's been a long time coming. It's been a wet spring. We were trying to wait for the water to go down. It got down as far as it looked like it was going to, and tried to take advantage of that and jump on it, but been held up a little bit in jacking that pipe through. One good thing is we are very confident in the contractor we have out there. He's our hired equipment contractor. His name's Charlie Henderson, and Charlie will do as good a job as he possibly can, and will lose money in the process if he has to get it done. He's very proud of his work, so you couldn't have a better contractor out there. The other big projects are winding, looks like they're winding down. The 81 truck line line is supposed to be done next month. The contract is finishes in November. The other 2 actually have another year on them. The 114 bridge, the contract time is November 2014, as is the town project, so they actually have a lot more time on those. Even though they've done a majority of the bridge work, it may be next spring before the asphalt is done, just because you can't lay asphalt in the wintertime. So as we get closer to anticipated completion time, especially on the 114 bridge project, I'll keep you updated on that. And that's, I think, all I had as far as updates go. We'll be able to take any questions.
Any questions of the board? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Clark, there was I forgot her name. It's a lady living on High Top Drive in Merrimack. And what she said to me that there used to be a couple of school bus stop signs ahead on that road. I have no idea where they was or whether, but she asked me to see about trying to get them replaced. So you might have some records to say where they was, if they was there, or whatever.
We do keep pretty good records. Our sign form keeps records on when we get that, because we usually ask the school board to send us a request, and we keep those on file. So it should be no problem to find out where they were, and if they've been knocked down, we can get those replaced.
Thank you.
Or at least, I guess there's still, school bus stops tend to change sometimes,
yeah,
based on the children that live in the area. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming these are still active stops.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But you said that the school bus did stop a couple times along that road there, and when she was talking to me, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly where the stops are in the same place, or they shifted along the road.
Okay.
Mr. Creed?
Yeah, I've got one thing. Several weeks ago, maybe 3 months ago, I don't remember the exact date, we asked about getting the road abandoned down in Elliott Creek.
Yes, we need to get with the county staff and find out, the county needs to set up a public hearing date. It's the first thing probably just to go on that. And we can help you with the things that need to go in the ad. That has to be advertised. There's certain information that has to be in the ad. But the county is the responsibility of the county to add and abandon discontinued roads from the secondary system. And there needs to be a public hearing held. I'm not sure when you all want to do it. If you want to do it, I think we can probably get the information
I'll have to
by
see.
next month.
I'll have to see what our requirements are for advertising.
I think it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So it would be our first November meeting.
And we've had it on our agenda. I mean, we've talked about it here, so I guess the public meeting would be the last thing we need to do in order to get you.
But it's a process. I mean, we have to talk to, there's quite a bit of things that, administrative things has to go through before you can abandon a public road.
I've been down there, you can't get one of your trucks in it, so I don't know. I don't know what difference it will make with it to you folks, because
It doesn't make any difference to us. I mean, there's two processes. There's an abandonment process and a discontinuance. Discontinuance just means we don't maintain it anymore. Abandonment actually means there's no public right to use it. And so That's why you have to have the public hearing, because even if the road is not, passable by car, the public has a right to walk down it or whatever. Unless you abandon it, then it's no longer a public right-of-way, and it becomes the, private property of whatever citizen is there, and they can put a gate, they can stop people from coming down there. Whereas a discontinuance, that just means it's not maintained as a road for, highway vehicles, cars or whatever, but people can walk it, ride horses down it, whatever.
Yeah, okay, and you can give them, or
Yes.
give our county what information they need to get on with that. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Well, I want to thank you for being out to the road today. I've spent the last 2 days out there on Old Sourwood, and quite a project.
It's going to be quite a project. It's very messy at first, as most road projects tend to be, but we're working through that. We're having to put that stuff down, or the contractor is with the county.
Yeah.
And there's people that live out there, and trying to try to get all that coordinated.
What was the count on the VDOT people out there today? About 25 or 30?
There's quite a number. Yeah, we had our materials people were out there.
Materials people.
From the Caterpillar Machinery Company were out there.
Salem District people were there.
Oh yeah.
And
They're very, very interested in this.
yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, David.
What road was that? What road were you talking about?
Old Sourwood.
Dirt blue project.
All right, the next item is New River Community College, and I'd like to invite Ms. Sue Thacker up to, she is our representative from the county on the Community College Board.
And first off, the college wanted me to thank Montgomery County for all of the wonderful assistance that we got during our disaster last spring. They were so pleased. The response from the first responders, they were there within minutes after the call. And after the initial day, the next day, they said they were inundated with calls from churches and volunteers from tech and the school system coming out to wanting to help with counseling and whatever was needed. So we just greatly appreciate the county, and they were very grateful that they were where they were, so that we got the help that we needed at that time. So thank you for that. Now just about the college, one bad thing, our enrollment is down 5%, but there's good news to that. It's down because the economy in this area is improving. And we do normally see a correlation between the enrollment in community colleges and the local economy. So that speaks highly of y'all, what you're doing, that the economy is going up. But we're still there, and we'll still keep going. The enrollment last year at New River was over 5,000, so that's good. And that amount, 39% were Montgomery County residents. So I think that speaks highly also, considering the large area that we serve, that we are taking care of that. Now, one of the, to me, a very exciting agreement that has occurred is between Virginia Tech and New River Community College. The College of Engineering has worked out an articulation program with us. And so students can come to New River for a couple of years and then transfer into tech, into the engineer program. And they looked at the number of students that we have right now that are in that program at New River, and the vast majority are from Montgomery County. So I thought that was exciting, considering tech is right here too. So for the students to see the need to go to a smaller place and gradually work up to the larger college, I think is exciting. Now just some information about the mall site itself, and this first statistic is no surprise. About 70% of the students at the mall site do come from Montgomery County. So it is utilized a large part by our county. There are now 6 programs just at the mall site that they handle everything. All of their classes are there. They never have to go into Dublin. They still offer a lot of general ed classes, so students can go both places if need be. One of the things that I've heard quite a bit about in the community is the testing center at the mall site, where students can opt to take tests at the mall as opposed to driving to Dublin. And that has been a very welcome to the people who have talked to me about that. So the mall site really has become full service. They have counseling there, they have all the admissions. I talked to a student from Floyd, I think last year. He was getting ready to graduate. He had all of his classes at the mall site, never once stepped foot on the Dublin campus. So I just think it's wonderful that we've got that right here in our county to help out. So I think it does make a positive impact to the county. One of the problems, though, that we are facing there is we're getting too small. We need to expand. We opened up in 2007, and what was planned, the utilization that was planned there, we have far outgrown that. And the president did want me to make a very special statement to you that he would love to partnership with Montgomery County on working on future expansions in that area because they do love the site. They think it's a great symbiotic relationship. And so they just need to expand a little bit. So I'm just putting that word out for him. And Barbara Straub, who's also on the board, wants to talk for a sec about workforce enforcement, if that's all right.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Straub. I'm also a representative to the New River Community College Board from Montgomery County. I'm pleased to be able to serve the county in that regard. I'd like to talk a little bit, not so much about education, but it's all encompassing with New River, but also the economic development program through the workforce development program at New River. The Workforce Development Program fosters economic growth and development throughout the New River Valley by providing services such as career development programs, retraining, free employment workshops, state-of-the-art technology instruction, and assistance for veterans, which we think is very, very important right now. In 2012 and 2013, over 300 employers in the area benefited from New River Valley Community College workforce programs and services. Businesses and industries in Montgomery County that have utilized these resources are Corning, Mood Components, Federal Mobile, Lewis Gale Montgomery Hospital, Montgomery County Schools, Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce, the Town of Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, Virginia Home Visiting Consortium, the Way Station, Wolverine, and the County of Montgomery, obviously. New River Community College is active in New River Economic Development Alliance as well, along with other economic development organizations throughout the New River Valley. The workforce development staff designs customized training to meet the needs of local employers. Topics such as supervisory and management training, customer service, and apprenticeship training in technical areas have been offered. This past year, 35 non-credit courses were provided on-site to Virginia Tech employees at no cost, seeking additional training in areas such as PowerPoint, Word, Access, Excel, Microsoft Office, Adobe Photoshop CS5, and Outlook. The open enrollment program at New River Community College offers classes that benefit large segments of the population. For the first time this year, the college offered a very popular SAT prep course over the summer, which was administered at the mall site. The transitional program offers opportunities for students to complete high school diplomas through a GED program, a Sharper Skills series, which provides classes directed at technology, social media for business, effective time management and organization and employer relationships, and also real estate courses. New River has implemented a successful career counselor program that some of you may be aware of in the high schools. It supports students at the high schools at no cost to the county and provide the personnel for you. Many of the students also participate in the dual enrollment program, which enables high school students to take college-level courses under the auspices of New River Community College, again, at no cost to students. An initiative at the Dublin campus this year is the installation of a 3D digital imaging lab to support a coming revolution in manufacturing and producing goods, which was recently discussed in both the Wall Street Journal and Smithsonian magazines. And actually this afternoon, I even saw an article in Reader's Digest about 3D imaging, which is really exciting. Computer-assisted design and technical training programs and fabrication will be implemented at the New River Community College. We're excited about the possibilities for this technology. The distance education program promotes and encourages the college's efforts to increase educational access through shared services within the Virginia Community College system. In this way, New River can offer courses that would otherwise be unavailable to our students. A good example of this is that last year we were able to offer instruction in 19 different languages through shared services, foreign languages through shared services. The Distance Education Department and Off-Campus Services also manages the mall site, of which we're quite proud, obviously, from what Mrs. Thacker was talking about, and acknowledge the county for its support of that site. The site receives no state funding and is made available by lease from Pennsylvania State Investment Trust, which owns the mall. The trust frequently holds up our site in presentations that they do throughout the United States as a model to similar sites under development. They are supportive of the partnership with Montgomery County and New River. In closing, I too would like to express our deep appreciation to first responders and all those in the community who were so supportive of us last spring. We appreciate the Board of Supervisors' interest in and support of the college and look forward to continuing support of educational and economic development by the college in Montgomery County and in the New River Valley. If you have questions, we would entertain them at this time.
Any questions of board members or comments?
Very good, thank you.
Well, I just have to say it was an excellent presentation on all fronts.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, I just told Mr. Tuck who you were, Miss Straub.
Oh, okay.
She used to be Mary's.
She's my former teaching partner in 3rd grade.
Oh, how about that? All right. The next item on the agenda is our public address. We have one person signed up for public address. It's Harold W. Phillips. And if you'll please step forward, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes, please.
My name is Howard W. Phillips. I'm a resident of Montgomery County. Have been for about 3 years since I built a new home over at 170 Lovely Mount Drive, which is near Radford. I also own a pretty good sized chunk of land there, probably in the neighborhood of 7 acres. I have a pretty nice subdivision under development there. It's been developed. Hard times kind of slowed it down. I have several lots out in the Plum Creek area, and I have a subdivision out there which consists of about 30 lots. I built this many years ago, and of course put the water and the sewer and the streets in and turned them over to the county and the PSA. And instead of selling the lots, I decided to rent them to people who needed places for mobile homes at that time. And it's not a mobile home park, but it's a subdivision. Each person has their own lot. And it's, like as I said, public water, sewer, streets. The problem is, here in the last year or so, I'm getting letters from the PSA wanting me, or demanding that I be responsible for all these tenants' water bills. And if I have a vacancy, I'm supposed to pay a non-use fee until I get it rented, and then I have to be responsible for that tenant's water bill. I don't really think this is appropriate. I have no control over the PSA. I don't make any decisions for them. I'm not involved in the collections, or I'm not involved in demanding security deposits. but yet they want me to be responsible for the bill. I've had as high as $400 bills sent to me, and so far I've never paid any of them. But I did get a letter from them here not long ago, and I get notices from them every month, 6 or 8, which is kind of annoying because, I don't really got other things to do than to worry about somebody else's water bill. I have quite a few pieces of property in different counties, and so I have a pretty heavy workload. So I get several bills from notices from the county each month. Here I got one at a particular address, and it said they will place a lien on my property if I fail to pay the tenant's water bill or any other fees that they may feel appropriately charged. And then I also got another bill. I had a lady in the park who created quite a bit of problems. It took a long time to get her out. Well, actually, she disappeared and left her home, and I finally had to go through DMV. It took about 6 months. By then, the home was in bad shape with kids, and I had to just get demolition permits and haul it off the landfill. And I spent about $8,200 to get that lot back in my possession again. And now I have a bill from the PSA saying I owe them $447 for delinquent accounts, which I'm not sure what all that covers. I've called 4 times, and each time I get a recording, so I've not been able to get a hold of them. I don't have any agreements with them that I'll be responsible for tenant bills. I have apartments in Dublin. I have properties in Bradford, Dublin, Pulaski, Whitful, in Washington County. No one asked me to be responsible for tenant utility bills. I don't understand why Montgomery County is trying to make me responsible. And also there's a threat in this letter, if I don't pay this by December, and then I got a change today that they extended on until first part of the next year, that I'll have to pay $7,750 for reconnection fees if I decide to use the lot again. Of course, I've already paid that one time. So I didn't know where to turn since I'm not getting anywhere with the PSA. I wanted to talk with y'all, make sure you were aware that they are doing this. And I hope I get some help from them. Anybody have any questions?
We don't have a conversation at this point. Okay, but we'll record your comments, and we've got your address. And
I have a kind of an overview of what I said. If it needs to be distributed in the future, I can leave it.
Leave it with Vicky.
give it to Mr.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to address the board at this public address? Seeing no one, we'll close our public address. The next item on the agenda is an addendum. Do we have any addendums?
We don't have an addendum, but just to check with the county attorney, if they want to return to closed session after the regular meeting, do we need to add that as an item on the agenda?
Yeah, it'd probably be a good idea to do that.
I would go ahead and move to put the closed session. We weren't able to finish everything that we need to do and put that at the end of our agenda.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
And just to clarify, what we continuing the conversation on the property issues and then on the personnel issues that we did not get to.
I adopt that in my motion.
Thank you.
All right.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And the next item is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on consent? Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And now we'll go into old business. Subject A is a rezoning request for Gary Hopper, an ordinance amending the zoning classification of approximately 1.606 acres from agriculture A1 to multifamily residential RM1 in the Minor Magisterial District, District D, located at 1534 Gallimore Street, identified as tax parcel numbers 090C-2-5C and 090C-2-5A, account number 130812 and 07035. And Mr. Hopper, do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject B is 2025 Comprehensive Plan Amendment, former Prices Fork Elementary School site.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject C is an ordinance amendment for sawmills.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject D is ordinance amendment, Chapter 10, zoning temporary family health care structures.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject E is an ordinance amendment on cemeteries.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And number F is an ordinance amendment for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Number G, or subject G, is an ordinance amendment to add military installations to notification list on zoning amendments.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject H, ordinance amendment for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject I is ordinance amendment on amateur radio towers.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject J is an ordinance amendment for park and ride lots.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the one change we added in this one, per Mr. Creed's request, is that we added a 1,000-foot
Distance from schools.
required for park and ride lots put in next to any schools that have school-age children.
Did I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I want to make sure that when we're looking at that buffer, 1,000 feet, have we looked at how that might affect any of the future parking rides that we might have in the county?
Well, it won't affect them unless there's a school nearby. And that's the,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's to protect it.
Just thinking how many feet.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a pretty good distance, but I would just assume have a pretty good distance
That's
away
about a
from
quarter.
schools when we put parking rides out there.
A little more than a football field.
It is, and I know we've seriously got a problem out Fallen Branch, and I know that that's what you're wanting to address. I'm just trying to think about how 1,000 feet, as the crow flies, whether it might affect any future plans for parking rides.
Yeah,
And I don't know.
I don't,
you know, I'd have to
I don't
say
know,
you probably
but I
can't
don't
give
think
me
so.
one place that it would affect other than the one hearing.
I see what you're saying. I'm just thinking about any future parking rides that may have some significant distance, maybe a mountain in between, and you've got or a highway. 81 might be in between, where somebody would have to walk across 81 to get to the school, but it would still be maybe perhaps 1,000 feet. I just wanted to.
That don't pass muster. It's gonna take long enough to get your layers of highway on the interstate. You got
get to it fast enough.
side, the regular 2-lane road, and you got a side place where you can pull off, and then you got the middle part of your road, and that's on both sides, you know, and it's 1,000 feet.
I would just like to
We
see
can get out of the zoning.
Right, and I'm just thinking about 1,000 feet from Fallen Branch, using that as an example. Would that mean that you couldn't have a parking ride, say at Country Cookin', or perhaps over at Hunan House, roughly from that 1,000 feet from where the where the Fallen Branch School is? If you follow,
I can't speak to certainty on that, but I think if 1,000 feet is a little less than 1/5 of a mile, so that's less than 2/10 of a mile. Any properties that would be of significant size to consider a future park and ride lot, I feel confident are further away than that.
that's what I was wanting to hear, that this amendment wouldn't affect any future plans, I guess, and so
None that I'm aware of.
thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right, the next item on the agenda is new business. Resolution electing not to participate in the Virginia Local Disability Program.
Mr. Chair, we had a presentation on this at your last meeting, and the board has discussed in a work session to opt out of the Virginia Retirement System Local Disability Program. And then the next item on the agenda relates to the resolution that you or the decision that you made during the work session to join the VACORP Disability Program. So the first resolution is to opt out of the VRS Local Disability. The second one is to join the
Join
VACORP.
VACORP.
So
Okay. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And subject B is a resolution electing to join the VACORP Disability Program. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject C is accept the conveyance of the former Blacksburg High School property. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Or second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I look forward to moving forward and getting this property up for sale as soon as possible so we can get some of these funds set aside for future school needs or reducing our debt.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject D is FY 2015 Revenue Sharing Program. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject E is legislative priorities for 2014.
So
Do I have a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject F is a resolution amending the rules of order. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Well, does the public understand what we're doing?
You want to address?
Sure. This was requested by the board at the September 23rd meeting regarding the way items are added to the agenda and voted. What we're basically doing is stating that items requiring board action not on the board's agenda be added under the addendum section of the agenda, and that the board member report portion of the agenda is intended to provide board members an opportunity to provide updates and information of a general interest to fellow board members. There was some concern expressed by several board members about motions that were coming about as a result of items discussed in board reports, and this just provides a little more formality to stating that items that are to be added to the agenda should be done under the addendum section and not under the board report section. And that was, staff put that together based on the information that we received from the board.
Okay. Any further discussion? We've got a motion and second. Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject H is transfer to school capital projects.
Oh, you skipped
Did we skip?
You going to skip one?
Huckleberry.
Huckleberry.
G.
G, I'm sorry.
G.
Subject G is Huckleberry Trail request to the Commonwealth Transportation Board for enhanced project funds for the Huckleberry Trail Christiansburg Extension Project. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject H is transfer to school capital projects.
And I will be glad to speak to that for just a
Speak to
minute
that,
so
please.
folks will understand what we're doing. When the board approved the 2-cent real estate tax rate increase for the fiscal year 14 budget, not only did that generate approximately $1.4 million to be set aside for future capital needs, which is what we discussed in the budget, it also generated one-time funds in June, in the June tax collection, because our rate is set by then. It generated additional funds of about $700,000, and that's a one-time thing, or as we've called it before, windfall money. What the staff is recommending is, since the 2-cent increase was to be designated for future school capital needs, that one-time $700,000 that came about as a result of the board's adoption of the 2 cents, that $700,000 also be set aside for future school capital needs, which can't be spent, of course, without the board's further direction in the future. But basically, the 2 cents was to generate $1.4 million a year to be set aside for the future. And staff's recommendation is for that $700,000 windfall, that just also be put in there to help further supplement that fund for the future. That's the staff's recommendation, but certainly subject to board approval.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Well, yeah, sorry for the discussion. I'll wait till there's a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion, Mr. Tuck.
If I remember, the school board was before us, and they had about $239,000 of rollover money, and they didn't use any of that towards maintenance. And there were other issues, math tutors and the like, that were utilized. And so we're talking about $700,000. Do we want to, at this point in time, designate that, or we just want to leave it in our general funds to make a determination based on what the school board's determination was as far as their needs? It seemed to be more ongoing expenses rather than maintenance. And so rather than designate the $700,000, should we just set it aside and put it into the general fund undesignated? I'm just up for discussion.
Once you set this money aside and they get it, they can put it wherever they want it anyhow. So we can't tell them where to spend it.
Well, now what we're recommending is that it be set aside in the county's capital account for the future. So the only way it could ever come out of that account is if the board later comes back with a resolution to designate it for a school capital project. Otherwise, it just sits in the savings account for the county. So we're not giving it to the schools. We're keeping it on the county side. We're just saying
You designate it for the schools, also.
if the board didn't.
Capital needs, yeah.
Nobody else can get it, right?
Well, no, they can't get it. They can't get it unless they ask you for it and you approve it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Nobody else though can get it except them, if that's where it's designated to.
Well, isn't that what we talked about in
when you look at it that way, that's, that's kind of where it's at.
But isn't that what we wanted?
Sure,
when
I'm
we
not,
talked
I'm not
about
saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that, no matter what we do with it, when they just, if they decide they want it, they can ask for it. If we give it to them, then they can put it wherever they want it.
They can ask for it, but I don't think we have to give it to them.
Yeah,
I don't think we've got any
well,
control with it.
I think when the board approved the 2-cent real estate tax increase, it was to generate funds for future school capital needs. So, when we realized we had the $700,000, the staff discussion was pretty quick as well. That was generated from the tax increase. Let's put that in the savings account to further bolster the future savings. If the schools come to ask for the money, they have, and I would think, for the board to consider approving any allocation of that money, it's got to be for capital, so they have to use it for capital. You can't.
I've seen that work.
Well, and Craig, also, this board could change their mind and put that money in a whole nother account.
Well, they could,
It's not
absolutely.
promised to the school. I mean, you're saying that's where it's going, but that doesn't mean you can't change your mind.
That's a designation on the county side, but the board can change that at any time. That's true.
It's just that I'm sure that once we kind of make that decision to put that $700,000 aside, it's a little bit harder. But if we have it in the general fund, let's say they do need that $700,000. Let's see that they come and make the presentation. That's great. But let's also think about if let's say we've got some storm water, or we've got a detention home issues that we need to address, or there's issues at the jail. Then we don't have to pull that money out of that school that we've already designated. We just leave it in the general funds and wait for the need.
Well, you see, this is what the General Assembly does in Richmond. They do it all the time, and that's how the schools over time have become vastly underfunded. And that's the same kind of, situation that's happened over and over again in Richmond. And I thought our discussion when we talked about this was to set it aside. And I remember, I think it was, Gary, wasn't it you that wanted to know, could we put it in a fund or something? Or I remember us having a discussion about, could we call the fund, something with the school name on it, so that boards in the future or whoever might come, knew that that's what our intention was. Although it never ties us that, this board could take it right out and do whatever. But it sort of reassures. It's following through on our discussion that we had about the 2 cents. And so I personally am in favor of this. I think I don't want to do the same thing that the state has done over and over again. I want us to sort of be clear about what we're doing.
And I didn't vote in favor of the 2-cent tax, obviously, and in addressing that. But I thought we talked about the 1.4 million being set aside. Now, I thought there was some pretty strong feelings that we were definitely going to set. I didn't recall a lot of discussion about the, as a lack of a better term, the windfall, because the taxes go out in June. There is this $700,000 that's available. If the board decides to set it aside for the schools, okay. But at the same time, I'm just saying that we have a lot of needs here and on both sides. And there's $700,000 that, whether it be fire and rescue, a new rescue squad, or in addition to the rescue squad out in Reiner, there's a lot of needs that we have in a lot of different areas. But once we designate that money, it is a little bit more difficult to pull it out of that pot. And I think, and so I'm not saying we don't put the 1.4 million. That was clearly this board's vote. And I agree with you 100%. But I don't recall any discussions about the $700,000.
We didn't have any discussion about windfall, but it's the staff made the decision that you had this and that you wanted it to go there. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. As we've looked, and as I've shared with you earlier, within the next month, you're going to be getting a full accounting of where we are comprehensively.
Sure.
And we realized one of the pieces in that pie, if you will, was the $700,000 windfall money. And the discussion was, well, that was generated from the tax increase that was voted for in order to set money aside for the schools, so why not take that same that windfall money and put it in the same place? So that was the recommendation.
So instead of just 1.4 million, by the end of this year, it'll be 2.1 million.
Yes, ma'am.
In that particular account.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Well, I know we're going to have school needs in the next few years, and as part of the conversation we had when we discussed the 2 cents, which I also didn't vote for, was the idea of saving this money for a period of time to be prepared for our next major school project. And so I don't really have an objection to doing that. And I think we need to be prepared to move on some of the capital projects in possibly the Christiansburg strand or wherever the school board so desires. But I know the intent of the 1.4 was to try to go towards the Christiansburg strand because they do have some definite needs. And so that's my opinion on it. So if there's no further discussion.
Well, I'd like to add one thing quickly, is that we're putting 1.4 million in this future capital needs project, but even if you look 5 years down the road and you start looking at schools, it's still not going to be much money to do anything with. I mean, when you're talking about like a $62 million school in Blacksburg. So my thoughts is that you further the fund along by putting the $700,000 with that money. And I don't know, but maybe somewhere in the next year or two, we might have some money somewhere else that we can shove in there. And we may not,
But this can be taken out for, not necessarily just for building schools, but it can be for
roof
another
repair,
roof
repairs,
or something else, or repairs to a building.
But again, absolutely, Ms. Perkins, and I want to make it clear though, it can't be taken out unless you guys vote to take it out. So
when it's designated like that, then we usually leave it.
Mr. Creed?
Yeah, it seems to me that, if we were to put this aside and start putting more aside as we go, then you remember, 3-4 years ago, when we were trying to finance something and we used what we had in
to buy down, yes sir,
to buy down the payment, that it helped make some of the payment, and it made some, I forgot what we had to have it for, but anyhow, it made it to where we could do it rather than going up on taxes. We were able to cut into that and used that for, I don't know, we used it for four years, maybe 5.
Yes, sir.
But we lowered the ceiling on those payments rather than having to pay the whole thing.
And it's staff's desire, Supervisor Creed, to try to set you up as best we can to do that in the future when you have other opportunities to do that. That's why we felt this made sense to put that in that direction.
And just for the record, I'm not criticizing the staff. I just wanted to bring up as a point of discussion and point out a few things in regards to the maintenance request.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
No.
Mr. Creed?
It's gotta go somewhere. Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Lewis?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no.
All right, and the next item is to go into work session, but do we need to take a 5-minute break?
It would
before
be
we-
nice.
Yeah, let's just try to hold it to 5 minutes, though.
Well, we'll make it 5.
Yeah, I'm on.
The next item on the agenda is work session. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chairman Lewis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And the first item on our work session is our emergency operations plan, which will be presented by our emergency services coordinator, Mr. Neil Turner.
And I intend for my presentation to be as quick as it was when you were doing consent agenda. If you will look at your microphone, you have a jump drive that says 2013 EOP.
Yes.
That is your personal copy. It is in a PDF file, so you can't, if someone did get it, they couldn't change it. And I did that because it's so much easier than trying to print 100 books to get to everybody. But as required by law, under the Code of Virginia, we're required every 4 years to rewrite the emergency operation plan. There's not a great deal involved in what would be called a rewrite or amend. This year, there were about 600 typographical errors. Went in and removed, if you'll remember last time in '09 when we did this, each of the schools had a principal by name. And that's just a very unruly process to try to go back each time that a principal changes or maybe a manager of an agency changes. So what those are now positions. It would say Blacksburg High School principal, and that's how that goes. The biggest change outside of the grammar and the typos, this year we were required to place within the operations plan the Family Assistance Center. And what we do, our plan is formatted as we use emergency support functions. In other words, ESF 1 is transportation, 2 is communication, 3 public works, 4 fire, and 5 emergency management, and so on. With the use of family assistance centers, for example, at the Virginia Tech shooting, those family assistance centers came in and gave a central location for victims involved in a mass casualty incident to come to one location and get all the services that they need. We did the same thing when I worked in Pulaski for a week after their tornado. It would work the same way if we had a wildfire and we evacuated a community. What this does is allow people to come to that center and the center would be designated, for example, in Pulaski, we designated the Family Assistance Center at the central gym. Everybody knew how to get there. It was close to the area that was affected. They came in, they got to see social services, Red Cross, the funeral directors, when it was at Tech, anybody that is going to assist the victim of a disaster would have a seat at that Family Assistance Center. Then they come in, they make application there. In the flooding event, we would set up with FEMA their assistance center, and everything that a person would need can be sort of one-stop shopping, if you will. They come to the center. It provides a safe haven for victims. If God forbid it was a shooting event, it separates them from the media. It separates them from the public. They can come in, they have an opportunity to meet grief counselors, mental health professionals, and things of that nature. And it's just a real good place to do business for those people and get them back on the track. This would be a very seldom used piece. It would be for something that involved probably victims 10 or more, but could be as small as 2 or 3 involved in a flood. We might have a central point for that, and we would use the same process. They share information with the hospitals. They allow victims to be reunited with their loved ones should it or in the event of a fatality. It gives them an opportunity. They have the opportunity to make funeral arrangements. Again, it's just a safe haven, and so that's a big portion of what we've done this year. The other thing is that we have and are still in the process of working out the finite details. We have established a partnership with Virginia Tech Animal Hospital, or the veterinarian school. And they will come in a disaster and provide care, animal care. They will bring interns, their first, second, third year students, as well as interns, and support that managed facility. They will either come on site or will provide transportation and go to the vet hospital on the campus. So that's a huge process. Right now, they've got about 175 crates that are available to us, and all that takes is a phone call, and they'll get headed our way. And again, like I said, we're working out some of the little details to make sure that it works. We'll be presenting with you soon about a memorandum of understanding. And the good part of the animal sheltering plan is that the state has means to fund that and work through us. That's where the cages have come from at this point. Just real quickly that's all I have as far as the emergency operation plan. I thank you for considering adopting it again. I'm excited to tell you that the last time that you adopted this in 2009, I had surgery that day to replace a hip, and I'm glad to stand before you this time. And I would also tell you that how pleased I am with your volunteers here in the county. We've got almost 400 volunteers, and the work that they do, the efforts that they provide. And I will tell you that the operation plan is a blueprint, but you know, sometimes when you get ready to start building by blueprint, you make a change or two, and it is something to go by. These are a few of the events that have gone on.
Welcome to voice recognition by Nuance.
And I don't think that was me.
No. I'm trying to cut it off.
And some of the things that the folks are responding to this year has been an extremely different year. We've seen a lot of rain, and thank the Lord we've seen very little flooding from it. If you'll see the picture in the bottom right-hand corner, that's the second time in my life that I've seen all the floodgates open at CLARKE, and that's quite a sight, quite a lot of movement of water. One of the things that are exciting for us to go forward is our training. We're doing a lot of different means of training. The bottom right-hand corner is the Shattered Dreams that we do usually in the spring before prom at the local high schools, and that's just an effort to try to convince the kids not to drink and drive. We've also partnered. Blacksburg Fire Department has been recipient of some land in Merrimack, and we're establishing a training center there. And so far, we've got the building that was on site. We've got it prepped, and that'll be a training facility, a classroom facility. We've got poles erected to do ladder training, multiple sites that we can do a lot of different things. The Blacksburg Fire Department is going to seek a burn building grant and try to get that going. Recently, the School of Business at Virginia Tech did a project, and we were recipients of about $3,600 for the training center. So that's another exciting part. Again, some of the things that are going on with the volunteers that make up the emergency services system here in Montgomery County, and I'd answer any questions that you have, but that's all that I have.
Any questions of the board?
Just a comment. Go ahead, Mary. Ladies first.
I was really interested in what you had to say about the sheltering of animals. Now, are we saying that, like, if a disaster occurred, they can bring their pets with them to the shelter? Because I know some people won't leave their homes because of not being able to take their animals.
Absolutely.
So I really like that. And then another thing I was going to ask you, do you guys still do the, and maybe you do and I just don't know, but the training exercises where it's like a pretend real disaster?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I want to say, I got to attend 2 of those, golly, it's probably been 13 years ago or something. And I was so impressed with the way, the response, with the fire department rescue people, and the professionalism, and it was so realistic. I went to one where pretend smoke was coming out of a building, and the people had to go in. They only had this much room for the volunteers to go in and drag the people out, and all this, and it was just so realistic. It was just like you couldn't believe that it wasn't real. And if you've never gotten a chance to see one of those, you guys just do a great job. I mean, it really gave me confidence when I saw that, and it's been probably I'm thinking it's back in 2000 that I saw that.
I'll see that you're invited to the next
they're
one.
really, if no one's ever gotten to go to them, they're really cool. They're really neat.
And we have several opportunities. You can either be an observer or a victim, and we'll make you to look.
I was going to say, I went through some of those when I was principal at Christiansburg Middle. We went through one maybe my second year, and it was quite a deal. But you had to, everybody had a job. At that point, I had a job, and you had to learn your little part. So it was great. Thank you.
Also, what you're looking for tonight after the presentation is the board needs to approve policy.
Yes, sir.
Will it be okay is there a deadline?
Yes.
November 1st?
Yes.
So if we add it to the next board agenda, we'll be okay?
I think you have
There's a draft copy in the tab.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, what I was thinking was we changed our rules a little bit earlier that you can't add anything to the agenda unless it's under addendum, which we've already passed. But I
think it's
the
a
board
special
can take
case.
action out of work session, can they not? Can they come out of?
You can always add, yet you need to do it through an addendum.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, I'm sorry.
It sounds like we could do it the next meeting anyway, correct?
Yeah, it's
whatever
fine.
whatever the board's preference is.
This is a requirement that we haven't adopted. It's always been in November, and I'm not sure why, that we've had this done.
Gives the state, gives the Commonwealth December to chase down those that haven't done it yet.
Exactly. So what we're trying to do is just sort of get a little bit ahead of the curve and get our date, our expiration date in October versus November. But that's fine, and I would ask that you adopt it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes,
Neil,
sir.
I would like to say thank you to you as well as our 400-plus volunteers for all the service that you provide for this county. I mean, it's service that is second to none, and the coordination between the rescue chiefs and the rescue fire chiefs and things is second to none. I mean, they could be a model for some other organizations, the way they work together.
I appreciate that.
That's very, very true.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Neil. The next item is our stormwater management plan.
That might drown us.
And I would like to invite Kevin Bird, who's our director of the Planning District Commission, to speak on this matter.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. I have a presentation I'm going to walk you through that overviews the stormwater program and what's been going on. And I think I'll start off with that old adage of what not to do to the messenger. I think you've heard that. It's kind of the situation I'm in tonight here is...
well, you're part A, and then Mr. Lawless behind you is part B,
right.
so we've got a lot of fun in there.
Put that in our cleanup box here. I'm going to overview the stormwater program as it's coming out from the state to the local governments. And the Planning District Commission has been providing a support role to the local governments in the Newer Valley with finding out how to be best prepared to move the program as it's required to be implemented in July 1 of this year. And so overview some of the state regulations and requirements, the role of the local government staff in this new program, the staffing impact to the local governments, and the process that preparing local governments for the program. And then we'll talk some about next steps. And if you have any questions as I'm going through this, feel free to stop me, or we can take them at the end. Either which way, it's fine for me. So the purpose in the new law is really to address the quantity and the quality of the stormwater that's coming off of an individual site. And this was passed by the General Assembly in September of 2011. And if you want to look up that code reference, it's there at 62.1. And it is to be implemented by July 1 of this year, this coming year, in 2014. This is required for all the counties and cities and the communities that do not have the MS4. But as you all are well acquainted by now, as you're having a double dose here. Not only are you getting the Virginia Stormwater Management Program coming your way, but you also have a designation of the MS4 in some of your communities. So this is broadly affecting for all the communities across Virginia, but particularly Montgomery County. Virginia Department of Environmental Quality is the entity that's responsible for this going forward. They're going through a transition right now from the Department of Conservation and Recreation. So they're figuring out their roles as they adjust through this. But the main role of DEQ going forward is program oversight, training, and being a technical resource. The first thing that's going to be a big difference with this program is when the applicant comes in is that they're going to have to go into an e-permitting system. So they're going to sit down with local government staff and go through a document that's online to be able to get the application permit into the state database system. So we're working with the staff to enter that. There are a few triggers that cause the stormwater management program to go into effect. The first is disturbing land more than an acre. It also comes into effect when you have a common plan development, and essentially this is a subdivision plan. So they want to make sure that if you're looking at one parcel, that you're looking at what else is happening behind that one and the next one on down the road. It's pretty similar to what you already have in your subdivision ordinance, but they're trying to make sure they're capturing the whole picture here, not just individual slices. And this goes above and beyond the erosion sediment control permit that you already have now. There are fees that are associated with this. The ordinance establishes a minimum fee of $2,700, of which $750 has to go back to the state. And that $750 goes into those aspects that I mentioned earlier: program oversight, training, and being a technical resource. The remainder of that $2,700 can stay with the local governments for administration of the program. A tricky piece of this is it requires a maintenance agreement for every stormwater application that's installed. So this is going to involve a lot of homeowners associations. It's going to involve a lot of individuals as property gets transferred between owners over time. They have a maintenance agreement that's there as a part of that deed. That's going to increase the role of the local government on educating these homeowners and those HOAs and businesses also to be impacted. And there's a grandfathering clause in there for projects that have already been approved. So the role of the local government staff. The local government's going to be required to have a combined administrator, as they're titling it. This person will be responsible for plan review, site inspection as it's being constructed, and post-construction. They'll have a best management practices database, and this BMP database really is the stormwater management mitigation device that's installed on the site. And then there's reporting over time that has to happen as a part of that database. And then, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, a lot of communication with the development community and any future permit holders that come in to the site. So this is a little bit more detail on it. It's the BMP maintenance agreements, the stormwater management inventory that you have to have. You have to get out there in the field with the unit and digitize the exact location of these things so you know where they are over time. And routine maintenance, making sure that's happening on those things that are installed. Annual maintenance reports that go along with it, any post-construction inspections, and then again, working with the HOAs. We looked at, in our support role with all local governments, we looked at staffing capacity and what the decisions are going to be made by the elected bodies in terms of how they're going to absorb this program. What we're finding with the existing erosion and sediment control is that doesn't take a lot of staff time. It's not as involved as a stormwater management program is. And a lot of local governments we're finding is that they're all at the existing capacity. They're already maxed out. And here we are introducing a new program into the fold. In the rural localities that we've been supporting with this program is that we're anticipating it's a quarter or a half-time need. And because we look back over the past 5 years, all the development applications that are coming through, figuring out which ones would trigger in this. And so we figure it's about a quarter or a half-time position. But you all are facing a unique situation. Is that not only you have this coming on and higher development demand in the community, but you also have the MS4 that's compounding the situation. So in our analysis and talking with staff, it appears that a full-time position is going to be needed to be able to support this program as it comes on. And the other challenge of this is the existing funding, the $2,700 that you're allowed to charge, or the minimum that you have to charge for an application permit, isn't enough to support that full-time position, more than likely. So there's going to have to be something that's paid for by the local government. So overview of what the commission's been supporting with the local government through this process to make sure everybody's prepared to run. So we had a grant award from the state, from DCR DEQ. And as a part of the first phase of that program, we had to identify a local staff contact. We had to prepare draft funding and staffing plan, which was the capacity to unroll the program. There was a draft model ordinance that was circulated that the state provided and local governments were to look at. Those were submitted as a part of a preliminary package back in May or April to demonstrate that progress is being made. We were working with Draper Aiden Associates to help with the best management practices and the database for the local governments to utilize. We're also working with Sands Anderson on the legal aspects of this, so you can compare and contrast the administrative aspects between erosion sediment control and the stormwater program. The commission staff is working with Draper Aiden on a local manual, and this local manual will be available online so the development community can see it and flip through it and understand what they're working with when they come in for a permit. We're also working on a trifold brochure that's a little more boiled down approach. And then communication and outreach. As we're moving through this process, after the first of the year, but before too late and in the spring, we'll be working with the local governments to host community meetings in the counties to help them explain the situation that's coming before the development community and some of these larger homeowner associations that might be out there that would have developable lots. So helping on the communication and outreach. And then we also provided a regional approach analysis. And this really was an approach to figure out what the commission could do to supplement staff for rural localities that were less than a full-time position demand. So this is more the timeline. Back in December, working on getting things underway. In April, we made the initial submission of a substantial completion package to DCR at the time, now DEQ, and all were deemed acceptable. And then this December, it's submitting a draft package back to DEQ, and then in July 1 have the program start. We're working on a phase 2 of the grant. One part of this that's in particularly benefit to Montgomery County is that we do have desktop computers that were included as a part of this application that was funded or to be funded. We've been notified. So the county will have access to some equipment that they can use for that e-permitting process. When the developer comes in, they'll have a workstation available to them. The other pieces of this application, we're setting the commission up to be able to provide that technical assistance to local governments if they needed it in terms of the staffing situation. So that's the training and the hardware that we would need to be able to support those local governments. So next steps, really December 15th is an important date to have on the calendar. That's when the draft review needs to be complete and sent to DEQ. So this is having the county's name in the ordinance, not necessarily adopted at that time, but recognition that this is forthcoming. And then April 1st is the date that it needs to be adopted by the local governments and then implemented by July 1. So those are, it's an overview of the state program, how the commission's been supporting you all, and some of the challenges on the horizon and the timeline. If you have any questions I could help you with.
Tell me about that thing about the, you're referring to the towns with some initials or something, like, is the county in charge of everything within the towns too, or do the towns do their own thing?
The towns do their own thing. So Blacksburg and Christiansburg already have a stormwater program.
Okay, and then my other question is, I heard on the news, I guess it was, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, that is it Roanoke City that's charging each homeowner a 90-cent
Proposing to
fee
charge.
or something
Yes.
per month to cover this program? Is that what localities are doing to figure out how to pay for these, or?
That's correct, is that the approach is looking at stormwater as a utility. Just as you typically look at traditional water and sewer utilities and a user fee for that, that's where the stormwater fees are coming from, and that philosophy of having some tax associated with it, because there are some large costs associated with it. Mostly you're seeing that in the MS4 communities that have that higher need.
Density and all
Yes.
that. So what you're talking about is that we need one full-time person just to do what's in the county.
That's what's projected at this time.
Okay.
Mike can probably speak more to that too with the MS4 designation and what's required there.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a question. We are not only unique in when you mentioned there a minute ago, but also Montgomery County, the two towns within Montgomery County are sitting up here on a hill. And I'm guessing at least 80% of our water problem, when it gets time for it to be a problem, is coming from up here on the hill. I know Greg and I have traced some water back to longer distances than you could ever think they would ever come from. And I'll come right back into Christiansburg. From Elledge Creek all the way down to Allegheny. But when you follow that road all the way back up, it comes up and comes up to the interstate out here on the interstate on north side of town. So I'm wondering, you said they already have a program. I'm wondering just how close anybody has looked at that program, because, you know, one thing that we looked at down here at the top of Christiansburg Mountain, the little subdivision that goes down to Holland, is they really don't have a retention pond. And what they have done is put the steps down to where it will, I guess, slow some water down somewhat. But if you just go down there and turn left right down on the thing, I had a lady call me that literally washing her away. From where it just keeps eroding and eroding and eroding to where they send all this water down off that hill that she didn't have until they built it. So I guess my question is, who pays to fix that?
Well, I'd say the existing ones are grandfathered in. That it's hard to fix the existing situations. That is certainly a challenge that you see in more and steeper communities that have that downhill effect. This is all for newer developments that are proposed that are leading up to that July 1 date. But if there's a relationship between the two sites, there may be some way to correct those, especially if it's near a VDOT roadway. We're able to incorporate something with drainage with the roadway. But I would say it's contained on the site is what the state code is requiring for any new development.
And when Kevin's talking about staff positions, we've had considerable discussion about the need, in all probability, to hire a stormwater engineer for the county. The situation, Mr. Creed, that you're referring to, I'm sure will be something that a stormwater engineer will want to have some conversations with the town about, because I do agree with Kevin, a lot of this stuff is grandfathered and it's going to be a challenge, but some of our issues do not originate with us.
Most of our,
yes, sir.
it would be the way I would think of it, and because that's really where it all comes from. We go down there when it's raining real hard, we can take a look, and that's where it does
pretty
come
obvious.
from. I don't know that there's anything that you can do about it. They said if it's grandfathered in, it's there. You know, some grandfathers are pretty good and go help you out, and some of them won't. So, I guess it would be worth a question to them if they would like to be of help on something that they've put in the last, 10 years at least, but I don't know.
I think that's why you have a lot of communities looking at stormwater fee is to rectify some historical problems that the new development is only compounding.
Well, here, when you mention fees, do you charge fees all over the county as a whole, or do you have to charge county and towns differently?
I'm not sure about the stormwater fee. I'm not going to go there this evening. I have to look closely at what town of Blacksburg's doing and also what the city and the county of Roanoke are talking about.
As we move forward with this, and you'll hear from Mike Lawless with Draper Aiden on the MS4 in just a minute, the regulatory side, as far as the ordinance and whatnot, is pretty straightforward. The staffing, I think, is going to be pretty straightforward. I feel totally confident we've got to hire a stormwater engineer at a minimum. The real challenge that we're going to have to spend some time discussing is how do you fairly administer the charges related to this program. I say most communities, a large number of communities have created a stormwater utility and have created a stormwater utility fee. But who gets charged that, and how much you would charge, and how you would charge it when we don't have a countywide utility in place now, I mean, that's a lot of the things that we've got to work through in the coming months.
Anybody else? Don't go away, I have a question. Anybody else? Okay. How is this going to affect the agricultural community?
That's a very good question. Agriculture will be handled similarly as towards residential or other business applications. So if you have an impervious surface for putting up a barn, it would be an impervious surface. So it would be kind of the same. But if you were putting out new livestock, if you're doing anything along those lines that would compact soil, they're saying that's not going to be something that you need to seek a permit for. Land clearing is, in terms of harvesting timber, I've heard that you have to notify, but you don't have to have a permit for that. So there's some agricultural exemptions, and it seems like they've gone fairly broad with that. But if you are doing something with impervious surface, structure, or roadway, then it would fall within the same.
If you have an impervious surface and you have a lot of land surrounding that surface, in many cases you're generating groundwater, not going into streams.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, that's a question that's going to come up because we've got a lot of ag land and we're replacing old barns with new barns in areas, and it's going to be very concerning.
Yes.
Jim, that prompted a question. And when I was looking at your presentation, it said if you're going to disturb an acre or more. So does that mean the barn structure would have to be bigger than an acre itself?
And the road leading up to it?
But as long as you went dirt or gravel, then which wouldn't be an impervious surface.
If you're disturbing an acre. So if you are cutting that road in, then that would be part of that disturbance at that time.
So if there's an existing barn, an existing road,
if you're replacing,
and just replacing the barn, so we're going to see a lot of folks not cutting new roads in.
Possibility.
Anybody else?
We will be back with more information in the weeks ahead. I do want to thank Kevin very much because early in the process we recognized, and Steve Phillips is sitting back there, earlier in the process we recognized that we don't have staff to be developing this program. Our staff is out in the field every day working their jobs, and we don't have anybody in place to do this. So we're very fortunate that the PDC not only is working on this for us, but also some of our neighbors as well. But as Kevin said, we are in a unique position in that most of our neighbors don't have nearly the development that we're experiencing right now. So it's going to be a challenge. But thank you for your help.
Sure, that's what we're here for.
Thank you, Kevin. And our next item is MS4, and Mr. Mike Lawless from Draper and Aiden.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. You may not thank me when I'm done. I will try not to thoroughly confuse you because this is a different regulatory program than Kevin just spoke of, but they are obviously intertwined because they both deal with stormwater. But this program brings some unique challenges to the county in addition to those that Kevin spoke of. So anytime a new regulatory program comes out, it's like learning a new language. So the first thing we'll do is go through some definitions so you can understand what an MS4 is, what the permit is that's associated with that, what it obligates the county to do, what some of the possible compliance strategies are, and then what kind of costs and opportunities we might be looking at down the road. So MS4 is a municipal separate storm sewer system. It's a program that's been around since about 1990, initially only affected large urban areas, but is now affecting more rural communities. And this latest group of urbanized areas was defined by the 2010 census. A third regulatory program that enters the mix through the MS4 is the TMDL program, the Total Maximum Daily Load. And you've probably heard about the Chesapeake Bay TMDL in the eastern part of the state. Well, TMDLs can be assigned to any impaired water body. So we have several here in Montgomery County that will impact your MS4 program as well. And basically what that looks at is the amount of pollutants that a creek can assimilate without degrading the life in that creek. And they look at the data of the chemicals that are discharged into that creek and will assign loads of how much of each individual pollutant can be discharged into that creek, whether the pollutant is sediment, whether it's a chemical, whether it's bacteria, and then everybody that discharges into that creek will get a piece of that pie, and you can't exceed your allocation, and you also have to demonstrate that you're not exceeding your allocation. So with the 2010 census, there was a new urbanized area defined in Montgomery County that's outlined by this green line. It includes both of the towns, but it also includes several areas of the county that are outside the towns. And those are the areas that are affected by the MS4 program. So we have the Prices Fork area, Merrimack, the Bellevue Peppers Ferry corridor, the Plum Creek Radford Road corridor, and then in the eastern part of the county, we have Elliston as well. As I said before, this started with the large urban areas in 1990. That was phase 1. We've now come down to phase 2, which is the small MS4s. That phase 2 started in 2003. This is the next phase of phase 2, where they've added some more. A general permit. With the phase 1s, every MS4 gets their own individual permit that's tailored to that area. With the phase 2 program, the small MS4s, everybody basically gets the same permit. It's a general permit. The current cycle goes from now until 2018. It applies to systems that discharge to waters of the Commonwealth, including to other MS4 systems. And the existing MS4s in this area are the towns, Virginia Tech, Radford, and Radford University. These localities, there were 17 new MS4s that were just introduced, and they include Radford University, City of Radford, City of Waynesboro, Stanton, and Town of Abingdon, and Augusta County. So those are some of your counterparts that are going to be going through the same things that you are now. Again, we look at this as the perfect regulatory storm, where we have 3 programs coming together that were not necessarily planned to come together, and we have to figure out how most effectively to deal with them. So the obligations that you have under the MS4 general permit, number 1 is to submit a registration statement, and that's due for you in February. And that has to essentially include a work plan of how you're going to comply with this program, which will include these minimum control measures that I'll quickly go through. TMDL compliance won't affect you yet, but it will in the future. A $4,000 annual fee, and then it'll kick in annual reporting and the implementation plan. The control measures do overlap with what the PDC is doing, so we're going to try to piggyback as much as we can on them to minimize the costs to the county. And certainly the public education and outreach and public involvement will overlap with what the PDC is doing. There's a requirement to map your storm sewer system, make sure there are no illicit discharges, and if you find those, eliminate those. Address site stormwater runoff control. Post stormwater management in all new development and redevelopment, as Kevin indicated. Once development's done, you've still got to monitor it. And then pollution prevention and good housekeeping practices for municipal operations. TMDL compliance right now will not affect you. As new TMDLs are either updated or come online, you will be given an allocation for each of the pollutants in those TMDLs. So this is something we'll be working on as the program matures, but it will not immediately impact you. The TMDLs that are in existence that we will need to be concerned about eventually are Crab Creek, Mill Creek, Stubbles Creek, and the Roanoke River. Others are under development, and again, we'll continue to track those. The compliance strategies include some traditional and some new measures, including retrofitting some existing features, rain gardens, underground storage, permeable pavers, as well as some non-traditional measures like stream restoration, reforestation, pavement removal, soil composting, and purchase of off-site credits. The compliance costs at this point are difficult to quantify. That's part of what we will be doing, is putting a compliance schedule together, a staffing recommendation, and looking at budget over a 2, 5, 10-year period so you can get an idea of what the overall cost might be and how that might be funded. There will be some funding available through DEQ. It'll likely be through matching grants, but we'll be watching those as well. There are some opportunities through these things like stream restoration to mitigate some flooding and drainage concerns, improve water quality, and protect drinking water resources. And with the number of folks that we have on groundwater wells in the county here, protecting our water resources is certainly something that is important to us. And that is a quick crash course in the MS4 program. And I'll happily take any questions that you might have now.
You're not going to give a test on that, are you?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Next time.
Any questions of the board or comments? All I can tell you is you got me confused.
This was the first introduction, and as we do develop the program, we will be working closely with you to keep you up to speed on how the program develops and what the options are for compliance.
And I do want to add that not only did Mike make the presentation this evening, the county has engaged Draper Aiden's services to help us work through all this process, because again, this is, I thought that slide of a perfect storm is very appropriate, because the stormwater, we knew, you know, from a year and a half, 2 years ago, that the stormwater rules were going to hit us next year. We did not know until a couple of months ago that MS4 was going to affect us, and again, that was because of the census. And so they're unrelated in one respect, but because they both deal with stormwater, we've got to deal with it all in one swoop. So
We've had a lot of, there are several, I won't say a lot, of TMDL studies over the last years on some of our smaller creeks and things of that nature. Is that something that we have to redo?
Not necessarily. They will be redone through the TMDL process. What will happen through the MS4 process, you asked the question earlier about agriculture. If you have agricultural areas that are within those urbanized areas, those will need to meet that allocation as well. So that's where the agricultural properties can get pulled into the stormwater program if they're within those MS4 areas. So that may be another little different twist on some of those less developed areas.
Well, I guess you know where I'm at.
you're not in that.
So you almost have to be in, like the Plum Creek area you're talking about. Okay.
Correct.
Those
have to be in those
okay.
corridors.
And so if there are agricultural areas in it, they'll be
Correct.
small.
Yeah.
But it still could be a potential concern.
Okay. All right. Any other?
I just had a question. Have you had very many requests, or maybe not, from people within the community about this? And the reason I bring it up is I know 2 years ago, the Home Builders Association, one of their questions on their questionnaire that they sent out to candidates concerned the stormwater management, and at that time we didn't know anything about it. And they were like hungry for information, but we didn't even know really about it. So I just wondered, do you get requests, or is it still in the sort of the beginning stages where people...
It's still in the beginning stages, and it's fairly quiet.
Okay.
What's starting to catch people's attention is Blacksburg is initiating a $6 a month fee for residential homeowners. That's grabbing people's attention.
Okay.
And I think as awareness starts to be raised, we'll hear more about it, but it's still really in the initial.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Steve Phillips is here as well. Steve, thank you for being here tonight. I know it's been a big concern for the folks in his department. I mean, with building codes and E&S already, they've got a full plate, and this is just one giant on top of that. So,
All right. The next item in our work session is the FY 2015-2020 6-year road plan for interstate and primary roads. And who's going to address that?
I'll start. You have under tab N in your packet this evening discussion of the priorities for the fiscal year 2014-2019 6-year plan. Basically what we're recommending is that we add the specific improvements that are identified in the Route 11460 corridor study to the 6-year plan, and that in that we have 5 items. Let me just read those from last year's resolution. Route 114 upgrade in the unincorporated area of the county. Number 2 is Route 8 upgrades, standard width, straightening dangerous curves and adding shoulders. Item 3 was exit 114 interchange upgrades to improve safety. Item 4, as stated last year, said exit 118 park and ride lot upgrades, provide additional spaces. And item 5 was the Smart Road recommendation of completion of the final phase. Of those 5 items that we had in last year's resolution, we recommend adding a 6th item, which is to include specific improvements to Route 11460 as may be identified in the 2013 11460 corridor study. Then we also recommend modifying number 2 above, which is the Route 8 upgrades, to say include the specific improvements to Route 8 identified in the 2013 Route 8 corridor study, which both the 11460 corridor study and Route 8 corridor study are underway now. And then for item 4, the exit 118 park and ride lot upgrade, instead of saying provide additional spaces, we're recommending that say select a new park and ride lot location. So basically what we're suggesting is taking the 5 items that you identified in last year's resolution, adding the 6th item related to Route 11460, and modifying the Route 8 upgrades related to the corridor study, and changing the park and ride lot upgrade to select a new park and ride lot location. So what we'd like to ask is if there's any other discussion or consideration for any of the priorities for fiscal year 14 through 19 on the 6-year plan. Hit that pretty clear? Okay.
That's good.
Anybody?
Not Pleasant?
I have a question that may...
But that's not a primary road, is it?
I don't know. Wouldn't be able to think.
Mount Pleasant,
It's not a primary.
secondary systems.
Yeah.
Primary and interstate.
Just for primary?
That's what
Okay.
I have a question that may be related to this and may not, but a couple of months ago, we sent a request to VDOT about lowering the speed limit on Route 8 through the business section.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes, we did.
I've never heard anything back on it.
I don't know
And we did it
that
as a
we've
board,
we did, and it was sent. The letter was sent.
Salem District.
I'll have to follow up on that because I'm not sure. I don't think we've heard anything back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we had a specific spots, I think, where we wanted to start and stop it.
We'll chase that down.
Anybody else?
And what we'll do is have a resolution prepared at the next meeting for adoption, so we can pass that on to VDOT.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to go out of closed meeting?
Work session.
Out of work session. I do that every week.
Getting late,
Only
yeah.
the third time.
Did you get a motion? I can't remember. I'll make a motion if you didn't get one to go out.
Okay,
I'll
I
second
think we've got 3 or 4, so I think we got to be covered. Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair POLITIS?
All right.
6 ayes.
All right.
Oh, dear.
Next item is the county attorney's report.
No report, Mr. Chair.
County administrator's report.
A couple of things. Steve, I'd like to ask you to step to the podium. I'm glad I caught you before you left. I wanted to make the board aware and also the public aware that Mr. Sandy, who has been with us for several years as our planning director, will be leaving in the next couple of months for a new opportunity in another country. So I was going to let you, if you don't mind, Steve, just briefly describe what your next step is.
My wife and I have kind of been presented with a unique opportunity, I think, to
to work in Uganda in Africa. And it's a mission project, but it's much more than a mission project. It's working with improving healthcare and malnutrition for children in Africa. So it's a great opportunity. It's a collaboration of several nonprofit organizations and churches in the Roanoke and New River Valley areas that we've set up a nonprofit organization with those groups that we'll be working with and under and going and overseeing the activities on it's about a 9-acre piece of property that has a hospital, and it will have a feeding program, have a malnutrition clinic for severely malnourished children, and also have a church and several programs with that. In addition, I'm excited about the opportunities we have for agricultural activities. We'll be working with, we already have some partnerships with VMI and Virginia Tech to do some aquaculture and to do some other agricultural training over there as well. So it's something that's kind of been working for a few months, and it's neat to see how the pieces have kind of come together and just how we've been able to kind of be an opportunity for us to be a part of quite a big project. It's kind of overwhelming at times when we start thinking about all the opportunities that will present itself there, but we're up for the challenge, at least, for now. We'll see. We'll see how big that challenge is once we get there, but we're planning to head over there to sell our things here and move over there with one of our children in January, and then our 2 oldest ones are over 18, so they'll be staying here and going to school, and one's getting married next month, so they'll kind of be on their own for a little while till we come back. So we don't really have an exit strategy for when we're coming back. We've talked about probably our initial goal is really about a 5-year plan to kind of get all these things rolled out and implemented. So we'll kind of reassess after a few years. So and we plan to certainly come home, a couple times during the year. But it's not a quick trip to come back and forth, about 8,000 miles. So we'll make those trips as infrequent as we can. So we're excited about it. We just it's one of those opportunities, I think, that only happens once in a lifetime. So we're gonna take that challenge and see if we're up to that challenge. So been, I think, a lot of the work that I've done here and in the other local governments in community development, I think, is really going to help. And frankly, that's why they selected us or asked us to consider doing this, because of my background, and then my wife's an educator. So a lot of what we'll be doing over there is education. So it seems like a good fit. And, our 13-year-old son is real excited about it as well, so which is nice, because we're not having to drag him kicking and screaming. So he really enjoys Uganda and enjoys his time that he's been there. He spent about 2 months there, so he enjoyed that time. And he's already got big plans for what he's going to do with. He's going to be our farmer, so he's going to be our agricultural extension agent there. So.
That's great.
So I'll be around till January. Sometime in January we'll probably be heading across the pond and starting our work over there. So, but it's been wonderful working here, and like I said, I think it's been a great primer for me to get ready for this next step. So I thank you guys, and I'll certainly be talking to each of you before we actually head out. So thanks again.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I wanted Steve to have an opportunity to share that news with you, and Steve's going to be sorely missed. And in the midst of all the other opportunities we have ahead of us here, now I've got to find somebody to fill Steve's shoes. But
see, stormwater might have run him off.
Well, stormwater's got
I don't might have run him off.
Steve, thank you for that. Just 2 other items, Mr. Chair, briefly. I did want to mention to the board again that through the consensus of the board, we have declined the acceptance of the school resource officer grants due to the uncertain nature of the future year's funding for those grants. I did get an email earlier today from the school superintendent. They have fully implemented the new security system at Fallen Branch Elementary School, and we'll be talking more about that. I know that was one of the concerns, and they're also going to be looking at implementing security improvements at all the other schools as well. But the state, I think, meant well with the program that they offered us, but when we took a look at what the exposure was for the county beyond the first year, it was just a too high a risk in terms of cost.
That's right.
So we'll continue to look at other opportunities to serve the community there, but we'll be letting the folks know we're not accepting those. Also, in your packet under tab O, and I'm sorry we got all the way to O in this agenda. We had a lot to cover. We received notice from Appalachian Power about a project that they're doing on Clater Lake. They had actually communicated all that information to Pulaski County, and I believe Steve found out, I don't know, was it a citizen, but you became aware that there was a lot of discussion going on in Pulaski, and it was like, excuse us, we have property boundary in Montgomery County that fronts on Clater Lake as well. So they are going to be looking at making some improvements, and we're going to share with them our thoughts on making similar improvements on the Montgomery County side as they do that. I don't think it was an intentional oversight. I just don't think they thought about it. But what's in your packet under tab O talks about what they're proposing to do in Pulaski, and I'm going to compose a letter requesting that they do similar improvements on the Montgomery County side of the lake as well, and I will forward that to you guys for your information, but I wanted you to have that. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
All right. And board member reports, and I can't find it on my thing, but I believe it started with Ms. Perkins.
I think it does. I think it does.
We got it.
Steve, I wish you Godspeed with what you do, what you're planning to do. I think that's a wonderful thing that you're doing, not only for those people, but it's a wonderful opportunity for you all to be involved in that. I wish I were younger and didn't have such a susceptibility to foreign substances, or it sounds like it's a great thing to do, but certainly did take a lot of I don't know, gumption on your part and your wife's part to want to undertake that project, you know. So thank you again for everything you've done here, and for being so accessible and so helpful to us as we ask questions about things that maybe we really don't know or understand. And so thank you so much for that. It's been a blessing to us. Otherwise, I don't have very much of a report except to say that, you know, in two of the things that I'm involved in because of the Board of Supervisors, one is Pepper's Ferry, where always talking about all of these kinds of things that are coming up, not in terms of storm water, but just in terms of what is discharged into the river. But there are similar issues that DEQ mandates, and you have to go with them. Also, the other thing is the airport authority, and we've just been talking about MS, you know, Fords and what goes on there. And will we have some involvement with Virginia Tech on this too? Because we talked about them at the airport meeting, you know, as we're extending that runway, or going to, and when it gets completed, there were some issues about.
If it affects property in the county, yes, we will have.
So you're gonna, I mean, this is a complicated thing for us as a county.
Yes, ma'am.
Not only what these gentlemen have said to us, but you're going to add another piece
That's why we've got to have a staff person that devotes their
Yes.
day
I
to
can
dealing
agree
with these.
that. We were trying to decide there at the airport who was going to be responsible, Town of Blacksburg or Virginia Tech. And we talked about that, and I think they've worked that out among themselves. But it is, or between themselves, but it is, it's quite a complicated issue. And for us, I understand it's going to be even more so. But that's it, and thank you very much.
Mr. Brown?
One quick thing, I don't want it to be too long, but Mr. Tuckett mentioned the possibility of maybe housing some of Montgomery County's animals at the regional jail down at Salem. Well, I brought it up at our last meeting, and currently there are 6 dog runs, a total of 6 dog runs. The concrete is cracked and dilapidated. There is no power on the site. There is no water on the site, and it is unknown whether the well would even, the well water would even be suitable. It would cost about $18 per day for food to house any animals there. They would have to assign a staff member to supervise the program. There would be vet bills. Currently, they store their explosive chemicals and pressurized gases in that small building there off-site from the main facility. Also, Roanoke County would have to approve rezoning and issue a special use permit to keep animals there. And during this discussion, no member of the authority even warmed up to the possibility. And they said possible startup costs could be in excess of $21,000. And then on the other hand, I talked to Mr. Tuck, I guess a Sunday or two ago about, that I believe that housing those animals there it wouldn't be cost effective. And the next point that he asked me, what about a community garden, like the inmates could garden on the property and take the food, maybe donate it to a food bank or something along those lines. If that's a pretty good idea, I'll take it back to the next authority meeting if you guys, for discussion, if y'all think it's appropriate.
One, I want to thank you for bringing it up at the authority meeting, fleshing it out. We're just one of many members. It was an idea,
yeah. And
I just want to thank you for bringing it up. I'm in favor of at least exploring that idea. They've got a lot of land down there. Much of it is fenced in, but they've also purchased some additional property that's fine. Yeah. I've even talked to some of the members of the bar about whether, if we started this community garden with the Montgomery Radford Bar Association, maybe kick in some money for seeds, that type of thing to get it started, to see if that's a possibility. That there was some reception to that idea. So I would personally like to at least see you explore it. I'm not saying spend money on it at this point in time, but at least find out if that's something that the other members would be interested in to consider. And
yeah, I think just speaking off the top of my head, I think probably the real cost would be the supervision of the program. Taking a person out or one or two out to monitor and the program. That's it. That's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Biggs.
Well, I guess first off, I'm excited for Steve and his family, but I'm sad for us. So I guess you're going to find a clone of yourself before you leave, right?
Yeah.
So make it easy for us.
That's on his to-do list before he leaves,
yeah.
Yes.
But the library board actually met tonight, and so I missed their meeting, but I asked if there was anything to convey, and they wanted again to convey that to thank you for the van. I think I even mentioned that last time, but again they said say it again, so I am. And then the other, I just have 2 questions, or one comment and a question. What is the timeline, or do we know, for the school system to secure all their school buildings as far as their security needs? Because I noticed that at the Auburn, when we went out there, and I guess it's the same at Blacksburg, but they had a thing where, you know, it said that the doors were locked after 8 a.m. And I know that some of our other schools, you can still walk in the front door anytime, day or night. And I just wondered, is the school system thinking of having a policy for all the schools, or are some schools going to be open and some not? I mean, I'm not sure because, you know, I know Mr. Gabriel isn't here and has gone to the meetings, but I'm just not sure what's going on. And I do get asked that question since I'm in the schools, and I really don't know.
I do know that the schools are working towards a plan for security for all the schools. I know that the Falling Branch school was of particular concern, and they use that, if you will, as their prototype. I do not know for sure when we are going to hear further from the schools as to what their needs are. I do know they're working on that, and I do know from conversations with the superintendent that they are planning to come forward with a plan, but I can't tell you right now when.
And then the only other thing, I've been asked by some people that are associated with getting out of the Blacksburg Middle School and the Blacksburg High School parking areas in the afternoons, about the fact that it's hard for all the buses to get out at one time, and I guess they're regulated by the stoplight, but they can't all get out at the same time. So what's happening is they're arriving on their second run actually a little bit later than when they were actually coming from Christiansburg. So I said the only thing I could do as a board supervisor member would be to bring it up and ask you maybe to take it to the liaison group.
Well, and that's definitely a town of Blacksburg traffic issue.
Right.
I'll be glad to pass that on to the town manager.
Right. You know, because I've had people ask me, why isn't there a police officer there directing traffic? But I've also been told that the stoplight was supposed to take care of all this. But the stoplight is not one that is changed, like at that time, to stay, you know, green for, so anyway, I just said that's the only thing I need to do is bring it up to that.
Be glad to pass that on.
Mary, I go through there quite often, and that stoplight is pretty long coming out of that school. I mean, you'll sit there and seem like you sat forever, and I don't know whether you've been through it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll sit there, 3 cars go out, and it's still green for the side streets, and you're still sitting there. It doesn't automatically rotate back. It's longer, I believe, in the mornings and in the afternoons, because it's not that way through the day.
Yeah.
You know, but when school, about 2:10, 2:30 or something like that, they start letting out, and to me it seemed like it'll hold you there forever for the traffic to come off from the school.
Okay.
Okay. Supervisor Tuck.
A couple of things. One, we passed a regulation or a rule for us about not bringing things up to vote unless we had put it up through the agenda. We may want to reflect on that and think about that a little bit more, because sometimes there are issues that do come up that during presentations, like Neil's presentation tonight, I was just thinking about it. If he had needed to move forward, or we saw something like that and we wanted to go forward.
Let me just clarify. I would interpret the rules to say that you can do that at any time. Well, I think the intention of the rules
So it doesn't have to be...
It doesn't have to be at that time of the addendum. But the intention is that if you're going to add something to the agenda, do an addendum motion, add it, and then
Instead of board
that can happen at any time before the board.
Instead of bringing it as
if let's say Neil had that presentation, I would say, to my fellow board members, I'd like to make a motion to add that to an addendum, and that's how we would go about it.
No, what you would say is I'd like to add that resolution to the board's agenda. So you'd say I want to do an addendum, adding that, and then you have to vote on adding it, and then you would vote on approving it or not approving.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to, because of the way that our agendas are structured, the addendum portion is way up front.
Right.
And that's primarily if staff knows of additional items that need to be added, but the board has the prerogative at any time during the meeting to make a motion for an addendum. It's a formality, but it helps in making sure the board is okay with adding something to the agenda rather than a board member just putting it out on the floor.
And I think the thinking is that if you know you want to bring it up, then do it when the addendum portion comes.
Right.
And don't wait. But if you don't know, then you don't know, and then you can add it at that point.
Because sometimes we've had those reports where no one objected to something, and we had a builder that needed to go forward or something along those lines, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't handcuff ourselves, because believe it or not, sometimes I'm a rule follower and try to abide by. The other thing is, occasionally I've talked with folks about rail service here in the New River Valley, and I think that we are going to start seeing Amtrak pushing towards Bristol. And I think that we need to start working with Pulaski and working with Radford and figuring out where there's going to be a stop in the New River Valley and making sure that there is a rail stop. To give you an idea, Amtrak, it's my understanding, their goal for Lynchburg was about 50,000 riders, give or take 1,000. They hit over 90,000. And I think that some of that information is going to be released later today. So I think we need to start thinking about it. We do have some existing facilities in Cambria as far as stations that could be upgraded and the like, talks with Norfolk and Southern. And so those are some of the things, because it's a true recruiting tool for Liberty University. They are recruiting out of New England saying, hey, listen, you can get on a train and you'll be home in 8-10 hours. And they don't have to worry about the kids being out on the interstate. They don't have to go through all the airport security and all those things. And it's bringing a lot of kids into Liberty.
If I can just add to that, when I went to the ICMA conference a couple of weeks ago in Boston, I took Amtrak from Lynchburg up and back. We had to be on the train at 5:56 a.m. on Saturday morning from Lynchburg. There were at least 10 students in that train station with us at 5:30 on Saturday morning, because they were going home for the weekend, going up north, and then they were getting back on the train Sunday or Monday to come back. So for what it's done for Liberty, I certainly want to echo Supervisors Tuck's comments, because for VT and Radford it would be huge, and it would ensure a big ridership.
And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Creed.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I would like to acknowledge Steve Sandy for his work that he's done here for over the past 3 or 4 years, and then some years even before that while he was gone. I know it'll be an exciting trip, and I know that y'all must really be about to bust at the seams ready to get over there. So something like that, it will get after you, and you just have to go. And I understand that, and congratulations on being the chosen one in this case. The only other thing that I would like to mention is MRSWA, or Montgomery Regional Solid Waste Authority. We are going to implement after this coming week, we've got a hazardous waste pickup
On Saturday, yeah.
this Saturday.
Thank you.
So if you've got anything that you need to get rid of, that might be the time to do it. That said, we have done a lot of research and found out that we can actually take in solid waste 6 days a week.
Or hazardous waste.
Or hazardous waste, rather. I'm sorry. Hazardous waste 6 days a week will cost a little less than what we're paying now for 2 of these sites on Saturdays. So we'll have our own person there taking it in, and that is going to be implemented in the near future. So that ought to really eliminate the lines. You know, sometimes the last one we had, this reason we're having another one, the line was about 2 miles long trying to get in there. And, you know, it just didn't work out real good because they just couldn't get them, everybody wasn't served. But by doing it this way, everybody will be served on a timely basis. And all you gotta do is bring it in there and to get rid of it. So that's all I have.
That's good.
Okay.
That's really good.
And I just want to address my comments to Steve. He and I have worked together in a couple of committees, and I'm going to ask you one favor. When you come back, please come to our board and let us know how things are going. And, you know, I'm in for the miss you, because you and I have had a lot of contact over the years. And, but I'm very happy for you and your family to be able to take an opportunity that is not only a once in a lifetime, but it's a 1 in a million also. So, very proud that you were selected for this, and it takes a lot of heart to do something like this. And I feel, knowing you through the years, that you're the right person for the job. Other than that, I have nothing more. I've spoke about my dirt glue earlier today, and that's probably the biggest event I've had in the last, several weeks. And
Closed meeting. I guess at this point in time, I move to go into closed meeting.
Second.
We
Do I
need
have
to
a
reread
a second?
You need to state the reasons why.
Oh, okay. We're going to close meeting to continue our conversation on personnel and property.
As listed in the agenda.
As listed in
As
the
listed
agenda.
in the agenda.
As listed in the agenda.
And with the board's help, we can make this fairly brief, I think, so.
Did we do a vote?
We need a roll call?
Yeah.
Mr. Child?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Williams? Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chairman Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Aye.
And we'll have to come back out to adjourn, so
Yeah.
we can do that quick.